Have you ever wondered how a company goes from being a local favorite to a global powerhouse? I mean, it is a massive leap, right? It's filled with incredible opportunities, but also some really serious risks. Today, we're going to demystify that exact journey. So let's dive into the strategic roadmap for going international.
Here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with the big one. Why even bother going global? Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how you scan a new environment, how to pick the right strategy, and how to make that critical first move. And we'll wrap up by talking about the global mindset that holds it all together. It's really a complete expedition from A to Z.
Okay, so first things first, we have to understand the why. What really motivates a successful business to step outside the comfort of its home turf?
It seems like such a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer, well, it's this really complex balancing act between huge ambition and serious caution. It's a tug of war between the potential for massive rewards and the very real chance of failure. And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. On one hand, you've got these incredible opportunities, tapping into brand new markets, saving money through economies of scale, maybe even giving an old product a new lease on life. But then you look at the other side, and the risks are just as big. We're talking about political chaos, crazy currency swings, and the giant headache of managing different cultures and tangled logistics. It is a very high-stakes game.
So let's say a company weighs all those pros and cons and decides, okay, we're doing this. You can't just jump in blind. The next absolutely critical step is to map the terrain. You have to understand the new environment before you can ever hope to succeed in it.
And this isn't guesswork. There's a formal process for this. You can see the 4 key steps right here. First, you identify all the possible external factors out there. Then, you narrow it down and select the ones that are actually relevant to your business. After that, you dig in and analyze the variables. And finally, all that data, all that intelligence helps you figure out your strategic position in that new market. So how do you actually do all that reconnaissance? Well, one of the most powerful, most widely used tools for that first step of identifying the factors is something called a PESTLE analysis. PESTLE is just a handy acronym that helps you systematically break down the world outside your company so nothing catches you by surprise. P is for political. You got to think about trade policies, government stability. E is for economic, inflation, exchange rates, all that fun stuff. S is for social, the cultural norms, what consumers are like. T is for technological. What's the infrastructure like? L is for legal. What are the local laws? And that last E is for environmental, things like climate or sustainability rules. It's basically a comprehensive checklist so you don't get blindsided.
Okay, so you've done your homework. You've used tools like PESTLE to get the lay of the land. Now you have to use that intelligence to come up with a game plan. How are you actually going to operate in this new world? This brings us to the core global strategies. When it comes down to it, there are 3 main paths you can take. First, there's the multi-domestic strategy. This is where you customize your products for each country. Think of how Nestlé sells totally different kinds of coffee and food depending on where you are. The complete opposite is a global strategy, where you sell one standardized product everywhere to be super efficient, like Intel selling the same computer chips all over the world. And then there's the transnational strategy, which is kind of a hybrid. You've probably heard the phrase, think globally, act locally. That's this. McDonald's is a master at this, right? They have their core brand, but they also offer stuff like the McSpicy Paneer in India.
Choosing a strategy is one thing, but making that first concrete move into a new country, that's a whole other ballgame. So, how do you actually get your foot in the door? Let's check out the options.
Most companies don't just dive into the deep end. They usually follow a path of slowly increasing their commitment and, well, their risk. It often starts with the safest bet, exporting, just selling the stuff you make at home to people abroad. From there, maybe you move to licensing, then a joint venture with a local company, and finally, the biggest leap of all, direct investment, where you actually build or buy your own facilities there.
And this table really shows you the trade-offs. Every single step up that ladder is a trade. You're basically swapping lower risk for more control. Take exporting. Super low risk, it's fast, but you're dealing with tariffs and you're always going to be seen as an outsider. Then look at licensing. You hand off the risk, but you also hand off control, and your partner could become your competitor down the line. A joint venture gets you insider knowledge, but they can be a real pain to manage. And finally, direct investment gives you total control, but you guessed it, you also take on all the risk and have to pour in the most resources. There's no one best way. It all depends on a company's goals and how much risk they're willing to stomach.
This brings us to our final piece of the puzzle. And this might just be the most important one. Because beyond all the strategies and the entry modes, there's this overarching philosophy, a mindset that guides every single decision a company makes. To really get a handle on these different corporate worldviews, we can use a great little tool called the EPRG framework. It breaks down the 4 main philosophies a company can have as it goes global.
First up, we've got the ethnocentric mindset. This is the classic headquarters knows best approach. The company believes that what works at home is superior and will work everywhere else. Think of a luxury car brand that sells the exact same car all over the world because they believe their home country engineering is the whole appeal.
Now flip that completely on its head and you get the polycentric mindset. This approach says, hey, the local managers in each country know what's best for their own markets. Control is spread out, and the products can be totally different from one country to the next. You see this a lot in the food industry, where local tastes are king.
A sort of middle ground approach is regiocentric. This mindset lumps countries into regions, like North America or Europe, and then develops strategies that work for that whole region. For example, a tech company might make one smartphone model for the European market and a different one with different features for the Asian market.
And finally, there's the geocentric mindset. This is a truly global perspective. It sees the whole world as one single integrated market. It actively looks for the best ideas, the best people, the best practices from anywhere on the planet. The philosophy is basically, let's just find the best way to do this, period. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? All the planning and analysis in the world doesn't mean a thing if the company's underlying mindset isn't aligned with its global dreams. The philosophy is what drives the strategy.
So that brings us to the end of our strategic roadmap, and it leaves us with one final thing to think about. If you were the one taking a business global, after everything we've talked about today, which of these mindsets, ethnocentric, polycentric, regiocentric, or geocentric, do you think you'd choose? And more importantly, why?